Who are you and what do you do?
It's just like it was the most euphoric thing that had ever hit me.
Still just trying to break the stigma around cannabis in general.
I'm a professional drug dealer, I guess.
That's really how I fell in love with cannabis.
Yeah. Well, today, Craig, we basically talked about a lot. What was supposed to be, an initial 15-minute conversation. We just basically covered the entire gambit. And so we'll get to, all of it. But you started originally with a pharmaceutical background, right?
Right,
Pharmaceutical
right,
background to cannabis, where the rules are still being written. And so this, clearly you have been in the industry for more than 10 years. This isn't about just surviving, but thriving. And so
right.
I'm hoping, from our conversation, we can bring back a lot of what we, spoke about and give a lot of
Sure.
value on exactly how you're going about doing that, Craig. So
Cool.
from transitioning to the strict structural world of pharmaceuticals into cannabis, why did you make the jump? What did you see that others
Well,
did?
I wasn't a pharmacist when I made the jump. So I got out of pharmacy because it just, you could see the writing on the wall. That was no longer a good gig. And I'd done it for 20 some years, worked in a lot of aspects of it, been hospital administrator, saw all that evil. And so I got out of that. And then I learned to trade. I was trading in the markets and I spent 30, 40 grand trying to learn, not just in the market, but paying guys to show me what's up, because there were a handful of people who were consistent. And so rather than try to learn how to trade with all my account money, I got some education, but it was never quite there. And then, and this ties into what we're talking about. I heard about a thing called Online Trading Academy, and I opened the Seattle office. It got hammered during COVID. Hammered. They're down to like 8 or I don't know how many locations now, but there were 40 around the world, and you had instructors who actually made their living in the market. That sounded valuable to me, right? Because a lot of other guys were teaching, here's the rules, blah, blah, blah. But they weren't the guy who actually did it, right? Big difference. So $1,000 a day from lots of people, and we had people who made it and people who didn't. But the people who listened to those instructors started making money consistently, left jobs. We had some disabled vets who learned to trade. We did those once free. We did a class of just disabled vets, and I thought it was going to cost me, 5 figures, and it ended up costing me $2,000 because the instructor donated her time, students bought the lunches, and I mean all the expenses got covered, and I never asked anyone for it because the project was so cool. And so we had things like that there. And then they legalized cannabis, and I said, wow, you got an industry suppressed for 70 years. It runs billions of dollars already. The consumer base is proven. I mean, it just sounded fantastic, but also realized that it was already a commodity. So if you're trying to move into something new, I almost didn't do it because of the commoditization of the market already. There's nowhere to be innovative and go in and really, it's pure competition, and, you can be undercut by lots of things, right? Politics, what are you going to do about that? It's who you know. So that's a lot of risk, but the rules they put in place sounded like they would mitigate it some. And so that's why I made the jump. I thought, wow, why not be part of something like that? Because of the opportunity side of it, right? And it's legit. You didn't have to, the feds would have come after the state before any operators. We had no risk that way. We didn't, everyone's like, aren't you scared? And I'm like, no, all we do is say, hey, the state said it was okay. It's a perfect buffer where a lot of people a friend of mine helped me with that. he kind of pointed out, he goes, yeah, you're not even in the realm, right? And so all that in place, that's why I kind of went pharmacy, ran my own adult school, adult education company, and then, you know, a lot of those principles were all the same. That business was a franchise. I had help, right? And that's why, like, I was intrigued by your offer on the podcast because I wish I could have had. Oh gosh, if we could have talked to a guy who'd already done it for 10 years. Oh my gosh, that would have been amazing. You know, you sit there and you went through something like that. You don't realize maybe how valuable that experience is until something like this or what. I've never even considered that. But when you were saying it, I go, you know, that would probably be super helpful to somebody trying to get in and kind of hear what really happened, you know, instead of, I mean, how would you know? We didn't talk about it outside our circles. You know, why? To who? You know, there's no relatable situation. So it's probably, and listen, there's dozens and dozens of guys that have their own experience, but it's all in the same environment. You could talk to these guys in Colorado. They were there as long as we were, even more so because they were already ready. Their governor hadn't, you know, ripped apart the law that would have kind of regulated it during medical. And so I think I kind of got sidetracked there, but I was thinking about this afternoon. I said, man, that'd be a good pod, you know?
Yeah.
You could just hear what's real.
No, I think there's a lot to be learned from, you know, other people's journeys. And I'm a huge fan of essentially learning from other people's mistakes, right? Because at the end of the day, it's much similar to, you know, the analogy of the light bulb, right? We spent, you know, so much time, right, getting to that point, and then we just bought the experience, right? And now it's in, you know, right?
Interesting.
And so it's buying. We only have 24 hours in a day, 365 days a year, and only a finite amount of life. And if I can learn from others, and then essentially, you know, it's fast tracking, right?
Right.
You know, what all there is to be learned.
Free advice is worth what you pay, right? So
Right.
the key is finding somebody who actually did it,
Right.
who will talk to you. Because, you know, even today, I think the guys that survived were the collaborators, right? Because it wasn't just, it's not like what you're doing now, talking, and I can look back over 10 years and say, hey, here's what happened, how we handled it, where we had an edge, where we didn't, you know, right? Problems that come up. No grower has gone without mites. That's a liar, right? It's just, you hate them, but, you know, how big a deal is it? We almost lost our grow to it, you know? I think that if the tough thing is finding someone who will talk to you about it, right? And I'm not, like I'm saying, there you could find dozens of guys like me, all went through the same thing, have just as good of a story to tell, but you can't get some of them to talk to you, right? Because that's still IP to them, right? We're not really that way. We don't have much IP. We're super collaborative. We've gotten some great stuff from other growers, really helped us out, and we've given people good things. So who knows where you'd be without the collaboration? Maybe out of business. A lot of the guys, you know, tight-lipped, the market kind of shifts them out, you know. And I think,
you know, there is that old phrase, loose lips sink ships, right? And in corporate America, I think they've taken that to the extreme.
Right. Well, if the news that you're going to put out is going to have the police come and punch a hole in your ship, sure. But if it's legit business and
Right.
you can create relationships in the industry you're in. So maybe you're not going to go talk to anybody about it, but those guys that it's iron sharpens iron, that kind of thing. We don't talk to everyone because if you have to have a certain mindset that's going to work together. If you're a collaborator and the other guy isn't, and he's just stealing basically, or he's not going to come back if he runs into something good.
Right.
It almost sounds petty, but it's that pettiness. It's so simple to look through it, and people don't do it. That I know. In fact, that Mike situation, we had some consultation. We had a consultant about it. It was when I was setting my lab up. He walked in and just went, I know what that is. And we solved it. But we didn't even know what was going on, right? It was just a problem we hadn't been confronted with. And so what was the value of having that guy come in? Hundreds of thousands of dollars, I mean, easy, right. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, but we paid him for that information, right? The real cool thing is someone who'll collaborate with you just on, like you said, some karma, some goodwill, build a relationship, good peers around you, people who think like you, right? We don't hang with anybody who even sniffs to being nefarious, because it can take you down, right? And we're not that kind of people. That's one of those things you start losing sleep over, So everyone, we don't really. I don't know anybody who I would think would sell backdoor weed, for instance, that we work with, or that kind of thing. So it's so. But then,
so when you say we, Craig,
go ahead.
When did you get started in your cannabis business in Washington? Can you tell us a little bit about the company and what you have going on?
Oh, the company? Yeah. So I guess I don't know the date we got licensed, but it was 2000 or 2012, 2013, right in there. Gosh, maybe after everything, it might even been longer, but somewhere in that range. The company itself is called Empyreal Cannabis. It's like EMPYREAL, like the highest high or something. I don't know what we came up with in the beginning, but we want to be a little different, not look like butter or something, And so we started up, and it was we've never, except for investors, we haven't had to take out any loans. Everybody put in time, right? There's multiple, smaller owners and then a couple main owners, but everybody's it's more of an ownership team. You're vested in the company. So we've done a lot of work for not as much pay, but we don't have any debt. We just bought a new facility across the street, building that out right now and things. So we're doing good. It's nice to be there, but so as far as starting at the company, we thought we were going to do everything. We're going to have an oil area. We're going to do clone, blah, 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 blah. We're going to do flour. We're going to do joints. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But the reality comes in that every one of those things costs capital expense up front. So we pretty quickly found out that we need to stick with flour and maybe some auxiliary stuff. And frankly, we don't even hardly do that anymore. We have somebody else make our joints for us. We give them the material, they put it together. But for us to go, you're going to have to hire people, and there's some things. It's just, if someone has scale in their operation, we can't compete internally on an expense basis to keep up with that. So just give it to them to do. I mean, we literally do better working with these other companies, and those came from those collaborations. To be honest with you, because in the beginning, none of us knew how much to charge for anything and make it work, right? So
Right.
instead of thinking a guy's gouging you, you sit down and go, hey, that doesn't work for us. And he goes, okay, let's figure it out. That's, to me, I would say that's probably one of the biggest reasons we made it through. And I think it probably means more today than it did for us, because you actually have some knowledge out there now. You get a guy who will take you under his wing, or you build a relationship with him, and he's got 5 or 10 years in the game. I mean, that's probably even a consulting business right there. It'd be worth bringing somebody in, I think, and to go through your actual operation for a week and look through things or something like that. But anyway, I got a little sidetracked there, but this conversation's making me even understand how important that was. You know what? You don't consider that sitting at home all the time. It's kind of the too close to it. You're too involved. You can't see it. But so we started off then, and after going through all this back and forth, we now basically do flour. We got $20 eighths in a $25 to $30 market. We grow on vertical walls. So the plants are on a 8-rack system, and you slip them in there, and the lights are hanging vertically this way instead of this way, so that it's shining to the side, and we get to utilize our vertical space. So we're 8 plants high, 8 plants wide on 12 walls on 1,000 square feet. It's a big canopy for 1,000 square feet. So
we might slip if you have a picture or a video or something, we might slip the graphic in between here now.
Make a note. Yeah, I can get you a picture of that. You bet. And so so that piece of efficiency. Now, I don't know anyone else who has successfully done it, but Kirk, who runs the place mostly on that type of stuff, he's the guy's just diligent. It wasn't easy to learn how to grow that way. Lights come in different ways, different genetics don't work, blah, blah, blah. But we can put 864, I think, plants in a room. We can harvest it with comfortably, let's say 4 guys by 11:30 in the morning. Start it, not take 2.5 hours to take down 800 and some odd plants and have them hung, done, and you clean out the room. Next day, load. So, but the way it is, I mean, those things are just sitting there. You can cut them so fast. It's just things you found out in doing it. But we haven't seen anybody really want to duplicate it. There's a learning curve. We grow hydro, but we're probably unique in that. But we got less than a dozen people in the whole operation, right? One main guy with some help can run the whole grow because of the automation. And props to Kirk on that again, right? He built everything in. Dude's
so it sounds like you have a pretty dialed in team.
Yeah. That's a good point. Every different skills, different people. Yeah.
So, Craig, I wanted to ask you. So you've been in this cannabis game for 10 years, right? And I am always intrigued by the idea of America, right? I want to zoom out a little bit and just at a very high level talk about the idea of America. And when our founding fathers had the idea, it was a very noble mission and a very noble thing to achieve an aim. But on the way to achieving that goal and for that vision, the values, right, have to be adjusted on a sliding scale. I feel like for a while, in order to achieve the vision, right, the idea. And since the cannabis market is very much so still emerging, and you have these microcycles that are playing out as the markets kind of emerge in all these states, do you think operators have adjusted have they lost the initial light that they entered the market with?
So, getting that 5 to 10 year doldrums of just about every business. I mean, familiarity breeds contempt. You've been through all this pain. I guarantee you, it was a lot harder for people. You know, we had a whole different basket of things, and I think I don't. I don't think that I have an ounce more of confidence than anybody coming in the market now, because the things that could blow you up now would be big problems, and they're coming. Every year they say. Let me ask you this: are you for or against, as an owner operator of a grow? Are you for or against legalization?
That is a very tough question, right? Because
So, as a business guy, no ethics.
as a business guy,
Business.
the price of the commodity stays what it is because of the strict protocol around it. And so it would be, as a business guy, my answer would be no.
Right. The worst thing for a legal operator who's dealing with regulatory is to have it go legal. What does that mean? That means people can grow at home, or you can just grow it legally, but they're going to want their VIGs. So there's going to be some rules, right?
Right.
Okay. Every time elections come up, go look it up. Go look up all the articles going back for 20, 30 years even. Every election year. Hey, Chuck Schumer is out going to say, woo, we're going to make it legal.
Right.
You know what happens? Their only motivation, I found out from a guy who worked with a senator, right? He's one of his aides or whatever. He said the main reason for that is fundraising, because there's a pocket of money out there that if you say, hey, I'm going to legalize it, there will immediately form a pocket on the Republican side that says, hey, these guys are trying to legalize it. Give us some money so we can fight this and keep it from going legal.
Right.
The devil weed, And so it's a fundraising mechanism. There is no chance it's going legal, right? And I found this out early on. It was one of the things that I was even thinking about when, if we go set this all up and in 3 years they legalize weed, we're screwed. Put all this money out, we never had a chance to make it back. Because our competition, the supply demand curve would be blown up. You'd have some states that would allow it and some wouldn't. It'd be a total disruption to the whole industry. That can still happen. But they're not going to get rid of that. I mean, if you solve that problem, then what do you ask that guy for money for next week, or next 4 years from now, or 2 years when you're running for your Senate seat? We put a bill on the floor. So what? People walk on it too, man. It's nothing. That game has pissed me off for 20 years, 10 especially, being in this industry. You just, and then we're thinking, well, if they do legalize it, as a operator who already has all this set up, let's learn the rules and play to win. So, you go through all this thinking and machinations about what if it goes legal and what do you do? I don't, honestly, I think things like that, we're not going to see any of it. So I wish I could talk to somebody who give me some insight on that. You know what I mean? So I'm as new as anybody else in my mind, because there's still a whole set of problems with this industry where
I don't have any insights into anybody's age, right? But I have heard stories, and I do hear from there's an interview coming out, or a podcast coming out with one of my compliance officers. He's a solid gentleman, family man, again, a true, very much so the guy that would pick up the phone in the middle of the night, regardless if you're doing business with him or not. And so very, very much so, a solid guy. And he basically pointed me saying, look at what Morgan and Morgan did in Florida, right? Morgan and Morgan as a firm, all these big players, right? They obviously have some type of leverage and insights, right? They're trading information, they're talking to all these lobbyists, and whenever a state's about to go online, they make money off the leases, right? They make money off of executing on all these things at scale, right, at a national level. And so it's just one of these things to where all the way down the supply chain, everyone's getting fat, right? Everyone's getting a slice from the guy who's zoning it in that town, right? Because from the clout that he receives in the town to a handshake deal of some kind, right? That guy is getting some type of dopamine hit in some way, shape, or form. Let's put it that way. In the simplest form, he is getting some type of a hit, and that is reinforcing that entire behavior structure. But anyways, what would you say, in terms of, again, you've been in here for 10 years, what do you think most operators get wrong when they enter the space?
Now or in the beginning when we started, it's different.
Well, I guess it could be both. I mean, what's the difference? I guess really between
I think
operator
now if you are not up on a few subjects, you're going to get real surprised. So for one would be the nefarious influence of the Chinese, and this is not. This isn't like saying Chinese. They're just Chinese criminals, basically, with no disrespect meant. But they openly will break the law, and so they have an edge. I mean, I'm speaking in business terms. I'm not being judgmental in the least, right? It is a reality of things, and you shared with me previously that they're kind of starting to look into Oklahoma a bit and start to clean some of that. Good, because that's not good for anyone. They're outside of regulatory, but they can present as regulatory. In my view, the less of that we have going on in the industry, the better off we are as a business. Again, I'm just going,
right. I'm aware of the operations, like we talked about earlier today. I'm aware of the operations that are completely Chinese controlled and Chinese owned by a very small group of families that are all the way down the Chinese coast, not the Chinese coast, but it's literally a small trail all the way down the Californian coast, leading all the way to the Emerald Triangle.
They're in Washington, they're in Colorado, they're everywhere. It comes.
What are they doing exactly?
Are the enforcers willing to enforce? They are not. Straight up. I don't care who sees the pod. I mean, that's what I'd love to sit down across from one of those guys and even tell them. But I mean, when you're a legit operator following the rules, we are limited. We would be making more money. We'd have better business. The supply demand curve would be better without having, and in this case, the China. Let's just wrap any illegal operator under. But I mean, that's a big one in a small handful of people. You got 100,000 people is your problem. You can't approach it like 10. But hey, they're doing what they do. It's really it's hard to fault them because the scorpion and the frog story, right? You ever heard that? Yeah. So the scorpion stings the frog because that's what the scorpion does. Simple, right?
That's again, I think the same thing in terms of I think California, right? It's that's their entire approach. It's like, well, we put up a fine, $500 fine, and
so what?
It's my last check. There is no limitation on the structure that you could put. Aside from using, just products that are outright banned. I mean, they're the ones that are flooding the market, and it's a slap on the wrist, and the punishment's very low. and it's people right over
Yeah.
the border. I mean, it's very easy to go ahead and set up a small outfit and literally start pushing gear out. And it's not the legal program, right? It's not perfect, but the legislation control and the compliance control on the state side, I don't think they know what's going on
Well, they do.
because they're still trying to. Well, maybe they're ignoring it, and then because they're getting, again, why rock the boat when the programs are going so well? There's so much money that's being collected, right?
Hey,
Maybe that's
man.
that's again steel manning the other other side and trying to go ahead and
Yeah.
and give them
No,
the
you're
benefit of
nailing it.
doubt.
You're nailing it.
Maybe they're ignoring it, maybe they don't know, or maybe they know exactly what's going on, right? They're getting all these tips, they're getting all these cases, they know exact diversions that's happening between the states. I mean, I can tell you right now that there's a very known operator in the state of Massachusetts who is crashing prices across the state because they're diverting massive amounts from Michigan.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and if they're still making money doing that, they're going to be able to buy up their competition at 10 cents on the
Or
dollar.
price them out. Right?
Price them
Until
out,
you
but
can't.
you got this facility. If
Right.
if it was run the way you're running yours, it would make money, right? So they just
Right.
move into it. Maybe that's going to happen. Walmart doesn't put mom and pop shops out of business and then go move Walmart Mini into their space, right? So if they already have the facilities, but think about, or even just being able to go in and clean that part of your demand curve up into your pocket. That's amazing. So yeah, interesting. How much do you think a $500 fine deters a guy who's dropping 50s whenever he can get them? Hey, you got a
I
50? No,
think
I don't have a 50 yet. We're
is
gonna
a
wait. I need 2 more weeks. He's there. He'll scarf. I mean, that's what you're looking at, right? You could take the entire Massachusetts market, distribute it over the United States into non-legal states for 4,000 a pound, and
right.
that entire state's capacity could just be slurped up. Wouldn't even notice it. So you got one guy running it out. He has no liquidity problems.
Right.
So
And it's very hard
he
to compete
goes and does
against.
it nefariously, and he
Right.
gets a $500 fine. It's like I can't even come up with an analogy that makes sense in another arena. It's like so
From a
inequitable.
business standpoint, that's a slap in the face. I mean, I'll say it.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of actually competing with somebody like that, I mean, they don't have to worry about test results. They don't have to worry about parts per billion. They don't have to worry about microbials. They don't have to worry about employees PTO, right? Because again, and I would really like to dive into this. You
You
mentioned
don't have to
something
worry about
earlier in the
employees.
conversation about the corruption and the regulatory negligence, right? Allowing
Oh, dude.
organized crime basically to thrive in cannabis. So what's actually happening on the ground that people are not seeing? Again, everything from the labor side all the way down to, again, because all these things are impacting how the product is going out on top of all the violations.
Right. And
What is
you just
happening
mean
that people are not seeing?
with the Chinese side of things or overall?
Yeah. Overall, I mean, it's the Chinese, it's the Mexican
Overall.
cartel, it's the overarching, right? They're leveraging labor and,
Right.
there's
Well,
quite a few things.
so what's happening is if you have an inefficient farm,
Mm.
and that could be lack of sales. Let's say that. So you're growing a lot of weed, but you're having trouble moving it. I don't know if your salesperson sucks. The market, this time of year, no one's going to order as much in a retail store. It's just going to be what they run out of, fast movers, and they'll go half orders so they don't want to pay taxes at the end of the year for inventory. So everybody slows down about now. But you're going to have these cycles in the market, and get me back in line. The original question. I just told myself not to talk about
Sure.
three things, and I I spaced.
No worries. No, in terms of, you're looking at like corruption and regulatory negligence, right? Allowing organized crime to thrive in the
Right.
cannabis.
So
What's actually happening on the ground that people are not seeing.
right. So here's what's going. So let's say you're an operator who is growing a lot of weed, but he can't sell it. Can't pay your bills with a pound of weed. Power company wants money, right? Landlord wants money. Employees, most of them want money.
Quarterly water bills due,
but
town taxes coming up,
yeah,
right?
yeah, we
Soil
don't pay
bills
in
coming up,
weed,
we maxed out the
but,
credit.
yeah, it's it's $100 here and there. It's not going to handle it. So now you got a guy. Imagine, just put yourself in this situation. You're sitting on hundreds of pounds of weed, no money, and a lot of bills. Right? You're breeding desperation. The guy goes and looks at the situation and says, "What's my penalty if I do this? I could lose my license." Well, the business is about to fold. What are you going to do? The only thing that stops that is your ethics. You put your business and close it up, and many people did. Well, for sure. Now, I'm excluding this Chinese thing where they're coming in and actually doing this. But what's happening is they're selling that out into the market, and it's sopping up demand in either the black market where they don't go into the store to buy, or straight, if they put it into the dispensaries in a package, they're competing with you that way for absolutely no cost compared to you, right? And they're making money selling some of it backdoor out of state anyway. So they could compete with you directly here, whatever. Well, now if somebody comes and says, "Look, I've got a processor license and I'll take that off your hands." Really? What price? Decent price. I'll take it all. Really? Yes. Let's wholesale it. Okay. The guy with the license is the key. That processor license is being abused, right? And this is just maybe, I don't know, maybe someone's going to be pissed I'm talking about it, but it ain't what's going on. And it is definitely going to affect your business. Because if you're sitting there in that kind of situation and a guy comes up to you and says, "I'll take it all wholesale," and he buys 200 pounds off you or something, he just saved your ass and gave you an invoice. What are those guys doing with it? Well, if they've been caught already backdooring it heavy, right? We've had people caught red-handed. All that happens is they get fired and they can't work in the industry anymore or something like that. Maybe not even not work in the industry anymore. The owner of the license has an employee who went rogue. He fired him, hired someone else, and he's still good. Right? What did Biden say? His brother, can't remember the phrase, plausible deniability. So now the state doesn't have to go to the effort and money to annul the license and get rid of it. They don't really want to get rid of the license because that license, if it was put in the right hands, is going to give them their full tax vig. So
when you say they had the actual evidence and they just kind of let it go under underneath. What kind of evidence did they have?
On our lot, the police rolled up, and these dudes are dealing weed out in front of the business, moving green. Caught them right there. Now, it's not illegal necessarily you're going to see something like that maybe on that lot, but not like, dudes trading weed. So they got busted for that. And the guy was fired. He was terminated. And the business shut down for 1 or 2 days. The people who worked there walked across the lot into another building, and where all the employees are fine. There's just one guy who was doing it. So that's one you could do it other ways. You could maybe not even lose your manager because you had a sales guy who was doing it. Who knows? But you're going to have a fall guy. But what kind of a fall is it? We're going to just move you to Oklahoma and take up one of those farms because you already know what you're doing. He already knows how to run the crews. He knows everything. So you just move him to another place. It's kind of like corporate.
Yeah, national resource
Politics.
management. That's it. Or or the Vatican, right? Just moving all those popes around.
Oh, well,
Anytime
hey.
there's right.
Yeah, is the owner the Black Pope? I don't know. But that's one structure that's been shared by me from someone who was involved with it. You know, I I don't have any other stories, but you know, they know that that's going on. I guess maybe not enough people know. I don't know, but the reality in business is that is going to be there. So
Right.
we insulate ourselves by being hyper efficient. Our price point for weed is probably $500 a pound. I'm surprised it isn't there by now, but we're running probably 750, I think, something like that.
$7.50 a pound.
For
That is a very shocking number to
without
anyone
going-
who is in Massachusetts.
Well, without going to, Massachusetts is going to be higher right now because everyone has this capital expense to recoup,
Right.
right? We don't have a loan. We got no loans. We never have. We've done everything through effort and waiting, right? So instead of getting $1 million investment, we had to pay X amount per month on. That's a lot of stress you don't have with that. You earn the money, you do the thing. You don't earn the money, you don't do the thing, right? I mean,
Well, I'm pretty sure me and you can talk about, business specific, right? An entire, another 2 hours probably. But in terms of
yeah, but
insulating
that's cool.
yourself, going back to 750, the price point.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think
How are you
that
insulating
you
yourself
guys will
and
be
navigating?
higher than that. You'll probably run. I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't know your dynamics, but you'll probably be able to get 1,200 for a while. But when a guy like us comes into the marketplace and can't sell his weed at a certain price, we lower it a nickel on $1 profit, and you're lowering it a nickel on 20 cents profit. Those are different problems, right? I can go a dime, I'm fine. You're at 50% net, right? So I think you have to have a business person in the business and a grower person in the business if you're growing. Most business guys that are in business now are not necessarily your grower. There are freaks who can do both, okay? But they're such different activities. If you don't already have one of them down, it's going to be a problem.
Tell me about these freaks, Craig. You piqued my interest with that statement.
Well, okay, so I'm talking about someone who, if you have someone who's a linear thinker, this, then this, then this, then this, then this. They hate when you go on tangents. Those people hate talking to me because I'm willing to go off and explore something. And they just are like, well, what about the point? And I'm like, yeah, sometimes I don't get there, maybe, But that's just how my mind's kind of always going. I'm throwing, you get an idea. I'm trying to take what I know, make sense of it or whatever, right? Some people they get engaged and can focus on it, I'm probably ADD, who knows, by all, if you go and diagnose it. So, yeah, let me see if I approach this a little different. You want to get to the 750 a pound, and then you were asking about that, and then you said,
well, I was just saying in terms of,
I started going back to that.
Very,
see, there it is.
Yeah. So it's very shocking to hear that price point, right? Because, obviously.
Oh, you'll be 500 before you're done. You'll be 500 before you're done.
Yeah. So in terms of that shocking reality, right? Not a lot of operators are ready for that. On top of that, not a lot of operators are built for that because everybody is paying absorbent amount of money when it comes to their kilowatt per hour. and their labor allocations. Like I think the entire ratio is very off, and yeah, they're paying way
You know
too
what?
much
Fair
for their
point.
infrastructure.
You're bringing up a good point there. Okay. I did that
And
based on
Massachusetts
our
has the
power.
highest, yeah,
Yeah, our power
highest
cost
prices.
here, we have hydroelectric. We're
Mm,
like 8 cents a kilowatt or something like that,
mm.
or whatever that number is, but it's cheap compared. So I would say you'd have to add that into what I'm talking about. So maybe the 750 is a better number for you guys. I don't know, but
Well,
there's a real
let's just
cost that
say
somebody has
I,
to
I would
pay in
say
business.
there is still very much so a cadre of people that are looking at the industry and saying, well, 4,000 pounds was a thing, and they're not recognizing that again in the grand scheme of things there
Mm,
is a certain cycle, right? And a business has to not only acknowledge that there is a cycle, but also attenuate itself and adjust its processes and in order to basically survive, right? And
right,
so there's still very much
for sure.
so not even an acknowledgement that hey, this cycle is in full swing and it's going to continue on.
Well, here's why that's going to happen. Just to explain it,
Mm,
because I've thought this through forever. Before licenses came out, everything in the analysis, the way I look at that is what's the least amount of money it'll cost to produce it? Because at some point, you know, there's a cost of production. And if that isn't met with the marketplace, you don't have a business,
mm,
right? It's over.
right.
Your expenses exceed revenues, and you could borrow money to get deeper in the hole, but everybody stops digging sometime. And so the price is going to sit. And then what happens is supply drops and the price comes back up, you know? So right now, I think, maybe it costs us 750 to grow for most growers. Doesn't cost us. We're fine at 500. We have been from the beginning because we didn't hire all those people. I've seen guys with 50 people and grows our size. I don't even know what you have them doing, but they hand water. There's no automation. If you're going to do this, automate, automate anything you can automate, automate. But it doesn't work as well. Make it work as well. Figure it out. That's all. That otherwise you go away. If you don't automate,
Right.
you're toast. See, those types of things I think are more important on the business side. Those are things that will just chip away at your bottom line, right? We're talking about this diversion thing, people doing it. And, these aren't bad people and criminals as all. If you're organized like that, yeah, okay, maybe you call it a criminal. But that scenario I gave you is a guy who's saying, hey, the downside of
Mm,
this is, in your case, $500. So
mm,
they're gonna make me pay $500 in addition to what I already have lost here. What I'm gonna be upside down if this goes sour. It's like buying insurance, and there's no, it's not going to change your life. And I don't know that it should, you know what I mean? But I think that there's an indifference on what you were saying as far as regulation. Yeah, you're making.
so in,
I
in
mean, I'm
terms of
learning. I'm learning from you actually.
automation,
It's
yeah,
a
well, in
little
terms of
different than
automation,
I
right,
was
Craig?
thinking. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, and in again, in just talking about dollars and cents, 500 pound dollars per pound is let's say where we're headed. Most operators won't survive that. Aside
Oh
from
no.
automation, right?
Hmm.
What are the other two things that they need to essentially change in order to just stay alive?
Define your lane. Only do what you do really well. Right. Just those are the same thing. Uh, if you're really good at growing weight, your grower is just great at getting yield, right? Let him do that. Just let him focus on that. Have him improve it. Do whatever he's got to do. I see too many times that you got really good grower getting into the business side, or let's have him go do sales or something like that, right? Your salespeople get closers, people who understand how to sell, not someone who just walks up and thinks they're going to sell weed because it's just weed. Everyone who walks in the door with samples is selling weed. What's going to set you apart? Being able to actually so you find somebody on your team that's sales. This saves you a lot of money, right? You get an effective salesperson and they can close 30% of their deals or 20% of their contacts, or somebody who gets an account every 20, 30. When you do that, it costs you money to sample those stores, not just in weed and packaging, but fuel, pay, it's all overhead doing that. Samples aren't cheap. So effective salesperson, definitely someone who knows how to do books. I would hire a really good bookkeeper, or probably you need a CPA in this industry because of all the legal crap. You know what I mean? All that nuance. Bookkeeper's not going to be able to answer questions for you. So you need a good CPA. And I mean, this is in the stay in your lane, right? So get a good team, get good team players that can keep you in your lane. Now, if you want to do oil because you think that's a good idea, for instance, and you don't have a good person to do oil, don't take it on yourself, right? We got tempted in this a few times. You just get spread too thin, and now problems start cropping up in other places.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Lack of attention to detail. There's only so many hours in a day, like you said, right? So lack of attention to detail is going to kill you. So maybe you could call that building a good team, but hey, why run oil when oil is now $5 a gram in the store? In the store, you can get distillate for $7. Good, really good distillate, not crap, really good distillate on the cheap. Just supply and demand, because you got these guys that put these machines out that are just pumping. They could handle all the gear in the state. Some of these machines, right? I mean, I've seen some setups.
A single day, right?
You could handle everyone in the state. And he's like, oh, yeah, I guess so. All the trim for all the grows in the state through one facility. Well, that will never work. Your market's not. Your machine's bigger than your market, bro. Right? But and they were thinking about going national. So to their, these weren't dumb people, but their whole idea. But you don't have national, and now I don't think it's going to happen until that voter base won't give them any more money. If everybody just said, "Hey, look, let's not fund the politicians and see if it goes legal," yeah. Then you might get a sincere warrior in there to drop a bill on the table, and nobody cares because it doesn't fund one way or another. So they're going to roll over for a favor on the negotiation side, and boom! All of a sudden, House passes it, Senate it could happen. But I don't think in our current environment. So find someone who knows that type of stuff, right? Social media, depending on your market. I've never even been on social media ever in my whole life. I got no social media. I couldn't be that guy for anything, right? I don't even know what the social media sites are outside of the big ones. So that's maybe a long illustrative way to say that. But the other thing,
what would you say is the one thing most operators are too scared to do, but they really need to do in order to thrive? And I'll phrase it like this. In Massachusetts, we have a big AR problem. And what's happening in the state is a lot of the operators that have essentially they placed orders from all the cultivators and people like me, and they have other projects in the pipeline, i.e., other cultivation. They're vertical, because in the state of Massachusetts you can be vertical, or they have another retail operation that's coming online. And and they have essentially chosen to withhold payment from us in order to fuel, essentially, open up their stores. And the hope is, as soon as we open up the store and we're stabilized, we're going to pay you back. Obviously, me and you both know, anytime you launch even a basic SKU, there are costs incurred to the enterprise, whether in terms of time, in terms of
Labels.
actual capital, or in terms of actual people, right? There's various things, but there's a cost that is incurred. And they were already in the hole. Now they have this other cost. Now they have this AR pressure on top of this financial operation pressure, and they're competing in the marketplace while they can't even get products. We have a lot of people in the state that are shutting down because they're getting blacklisted, and the
Why'd you
market
give
is
them product?
essentially correcting. Huh?
Just to keep up, why would that person, not you, but whoever, give them product?
So essentially, they would. I'll give you my personal instance. There is a dispensary. It's owned by these two gentlemen, and it's they had 2 locations up, and we were doing great business, and they were paying on time, and they had fallen behind by 1 month, and we had a decent relationship, and so we put them on a payment plan, and essentially they stopped paying the payment plan, and we got left with an outstanding balance. And we learned that they had a 3rd store opening up in Pepperell, and the basically
money, need
withheld
product.
payment. Yeah. And so what's happening in the marketplace is very interesting, Craig. So what's, again, going back to the
we don't
stores
have
that are
that problem.
closing.
We don't have that even a tiny little bit, because, and maybe, I never really understood why it was important. I liked it, but cash on delivery. We show, and if you don't do it, you are out of compliance. So the state said, no contracts, no deals, no nothing. You can't say, I'll give you this price if you contract with me for a year or 3 months. I'll do this for you if you do. No quid pro quos going back and forth between those channels. Now, you guys are vertically integrated, so I don't know how that would work. It seems to me there could be a little problem.
I think what's happening now, again, is the market is correcting itself. So all the bad actors that essentially are, people like myself would just stop selling their products, right? And they would not
so
have
let the
variety.
free enterprise system clean it up. You know what?
100%.
I like it so much better. I never liked that they made us do that.
But
because
the only problem is the delta of time. Because while the free enterprise system is cleaning it up, there is still a burden on the overarching, substructure, right? That is still feeling the pain. And so, it's not
the guy
it's not
sitting
the
on
easiest
200
thing,
pounds. If you were sitting on 200 pounds of wheat,
right?
You had nowhere to sell it, and the guy opens up a new store, owes you money. You'll give it to him. And it can sit in your place, or it can sit in his. You don't have a market to sell it. Help a brother out. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, not great. But you don't have, at least you got something out. You know what I mean? But wouldn't that help handle maybe some overstock? To me, I think free enterprise way of doing things as opposed to regulatory is, I think you have a better situation than us, to be honest with you, now that I kind of look at it. I never really I was like, I don't really like that. Just stay out of our business. When I want to work a deal with the guy, I want to work with a deal with the guy. As long as I'm not doing some non-competitive, where are you crossing those lines that are in the law? They don't want to mix here between growers and processors and the retail. That is I can't even own 1% of a retail store because I'm a part owner in a grow. It's illegal. Right. They will not license. They won't put me even as a minor shareholder in any retail operation. So, it's going to be different wherever you are. Yeah. Look, you know what? If you're just starting up, and what do most guys miss? It's easy to say regulatory, but really be slow with your decisions. Vet things, vet people. If someone lies to you, just be done. Guy lies to you. Yeah, okay. We're done in this industry. Okay? Because it's even hard to count on the people that are reliable that way, because they get backed into a certain corner and who knows what they do, right? There's a lot of volatility of situations in this industry. Someone makes one little change and man, that vectors out hard, all of a sudden 6 months later you're going, man, that sucks. Our original thing having to weigh all those plants. I mean, it only lasted the first season. Every operator just said, no, we're not doing it. Come and fine us, whatever, and they changed it, right? But that first year, man, did that suck, and so I don't know. I guess that I think vetting.
No,
people,
I agree with you. I think getting having the right team, making slow decisions. I mean, all these are very much so. Again,
but I think that's what most guys are. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. I thought you were done.
Oh, no. I was going to say, like, why are they scared, right? Well, why are they slow to make a move? Is because at the underlying premise, like, they're scared, right? Like,
Sure.
and I think it requires a level of confidence, curiosity, and just really just being 100% you're genuine, and again, collaborative, right? Collaborating with long term, right? Why does somebody get played out in 2 years and people are around for 10 plus years, right? Still in business. I think it all comes down to very much so the fundamentals.
Yeah, I think that that comes after the vetting. It's kind of part of that. I think you're making a good point, but I would put it under. I would, in my mind, if I'm a new operator, build a solid team, but then, man, be careful with your relationships in the business. When you find a good one, cherish it. I mean, if you find someone in the business that you could trust and you could do a lot of stuff on a handshake or whatever needs to be done, or collaborative, however you want to term it, it's more valuable than probably a lot, because you can handle challenges if you got good people to collaborate with. I've thought of so many things that I've realized so many things talking to you because of the nature of our, you're probing and asking, how's this, right? That I'm sitting here even kind of realizing things right in front of my face, but I would have never uttered them because, yeah, of course, sky's blue, and then someone goes, why? I don't know. The ocean, I mean, whatever. But right. Yeah. So I think that's an interesting set of questions. It's hard to say the most important. That people. But basically comes down to people, doesn't it? If you look at it, you'd think maybe it'd be the market, the weed, the regulatory, and all that stuff. But surround yourself with solid people is probably why you're going to make it and why you're not. If you're talking about owner operator issues, right?
Yeah.
Man, if you find somebody in your business that is trustworthy and, I'm just thinking of some people that I work with, they got a lot of room with me because they've earned it by being trustworthy. Right. You don't have to wonder about the back end of that, maybe. Right. You're not worried about bringing up hard situations, contentious things. Can you communicate with the person? If you start getting blown up from the inside, you're going to blow up hard. You know what I mean? And it's not so much just the money in the business, but it demoralizes you. It just makes you think, God, what the fuck am I doing here? Oh, sorry, swear.
It's all good. Yeah.
But I mean, it's the right word to use. It's not cursing. It's just in your mind, you're like, God, what is this? This isn't what I thought it was going to be. You know what I mean? I think because you'll never have that reaction with someone that you've built something together with. You know, if you've built it together, you've done something. Most people don't build something with anyone. They got a job, and you can say you built it, but you're NPC, right? You're just there flipping burgers or count lick, stick, and pour in a pharmacy. It's all the same. You're just a cog in a wheel as opposed to the engine or the carburetor, you know, whatever, for an analogy. But I think that's what most of them miss, right? The guys that are struggling and have long struggled, gone out of business. I mean, it's hundreds of them. Just don't even know where they are anymore. They don't even show up on a list, you know? And, but the examples I knew, you know, you had somebody who had good people and didn't appreciate them, and you had a good guy who couldn't find good people. Either one of those, I think, is the exact same problem. You know, not to different individuals, but to the business. I think a lot of the places that survived were because the people working there worked together and were solid. So it's a subtlety. It's hard to see, especially when you're starting out, how important that is, right? And maybe you got to like give a little room up front to people, but have conversations that say, look, giving a little room now, maybe I need a little room down here, you know? And work on that level, then that volatility of problems isn't such a big deal, because you can count on them to take a chunk of this and you to take a chunk of that. And now it's not that big of a problem. Everybody else doesn't have that. They're gonna start going downhill on the relationships that they have in their business, because they're gonna have to put their foot down and force someone to do something they weren't willing to do voluntarily to help things happen. So I say that's the top one. Be honest with you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to learn.
That's just an interesting conversation for me, to be honest with you. I've never vetted all those ideas out, but what a tough question. What's the top 3 or number 1 things that most people don't see? It's there's so much. It's a
very fair
stuff
question,
to not
because here's
see.
the thing. I mean, there's like a sea of information, right? Like, and it's such a wide spectrum that you have to cover, because in a business you need to have your entire radar calibrated for all departments. But I think focusing on just at a high level, like 3 key principles, which you've covered, it makes it a little bit easier, but a little bit more specific now.
Sure.
New markets like New York, Jersey, right, are coming online now. What can new operators do that can set themselves apart and give them the stability and not make the early mistakes? And what are some of those early mistakes?
Well, I'll just put this on there and then go from it, but stay out of debt. Okay. You got to give up equity or whatever. That's fine, because those guys that money's in there and they're not going to ask you for payments. And, you know, I'm talking about negative cash flow, contracted negative cash flow agreements. Those are
right
brutal in the beginning. If you're a guy who's just got a shit ton of money, then explore. If you're not, you got to find your lane. Flour is the most profitable thing you can do, because as soon as you have to process it, it costs money and labor, whether it's extraction or, you know, whatever. A lot of guys want to get into extraction and things. I just think, you know, if you've got a bunch of money and you throw it at this and you don't care if $1 million goes away, lots of guys like that. Corrupt government, that's the one who's going to get the license, right? So for that guy, the problem set's much different. But for people like you and me who are, you know, entrepreneurs, and we don't just have a checkbook to solve issues. Oh, we didn't meet payroll. Oh, here. If you don't have that guy, I would, you know, I would I would talk to as many other operators who are in the same situation or have been, not like me. I don't know all the issues of the new farms because I just don't read about it anymore because I've got this whole other thing I got to do, you know. But I think networking with even a couple of key people that you can run things back and forth, right? Hey, I've got this pain. Well, we're not really experiencing that. Why not? Because of this. Okay. It's not like in a closed market like this. How many growers are you going to have there now? You were telling me some like ridiculously low number.
I think as far as I'll be honest, I don't know the cultivators the exact number in the state. I know the dispensary number, but not the cultivation number. Let's just say it's around 300.
300. Yeah. So, I guess what you need to do is
300
find
might be a
someone
little
else.
bit high. 200.
Okay. Even in that, if let's say, what percentage would you say of businesses are collaborative in your area?
I would say they're just starting to understand that they need to be collaborative in order to survive. And now they're trying to
Oh, but
figure out what that
currently,
word
how many?
means.
I mean, 1%,
Um,
5, 10.
I mean, I think the
20
numbers is going to be
guys?
arbitrary, but let's just say there are probably a handful in the entire state.
Okay. Let's say 5, right?
Fine.
If those 5 guys get together, they'll whip everyone else. That's my belief after being through it. I think if those 5 people who have a collaborative nature get together and I don't mean we're having a meeting, buddies, and a club or something like that. No, worse. I don't do that stuff. I invest. It was just, you know what it is? You got a few collaborative guys in there, but we don't know who you don't know who's who. There's too many leeches and stuff around, and people who aren't sincere is what I'd say is a leech. They're just sucking off the energy. I'm talking about people you can pick the phone up and go, "Hey, man, I got this idea. What do you think?" Right? Invaluable everywhere, but in this, especially if no one's doing it. So now, you got 200 pounds of weed, and a dude says, "Look, I just bought a machine," and he helps you out. You're going to be able to do business together. You're going to, when they meet another guy who's sharp, you don't have to go find him. He'll find the group. But I really don't mean like regular meetings or anything, if that makes sense. Get some friends, to put it in a word, And you know what? The hardest thing I think people do, they come up with a good technique and they won't share it. Right?
Right.
They keep it to themselves. You are doomed, bro. No one's going to tell you anything unless you put your hand out first and give them some value, because the environment is so cutthroat. So you got to be able to give it up.
Give, and then if they feel like you've given me so much, I want to do business with you.
They want to help you.
Can I give you something in return?
Help a brother out, right? Yeah, I think if you as an operator will, and you know what, you're going to tell people stuff and they're going to tight lip you. That was it. Can you imagine how inexpensive that is to find out for the value of knowing you can't really work with this guy, but you can work with this guy? The expense is an idea. He's not going to beat you long term. You're not going to keep collaborating with him, and he's not going to give you anything. So there's no value in that on a business relationship, right? So, I've never thought of this, but I'll tell you, Kirk too. He's if we find something good, we know those people aren't our competition necessarily, right? When all this settles out, and it hasn't even settled out here in Washington. It has a little bit, but you got too many things going on, changing the rules here and there, and corruption or, whatever it is, right? Or a new rule in the law. or something, or legalization, right? Those are huge threats business wise, but there's always going to be somebody selling this weed in the market we're in. Agreed?
Agreed.
Always. It's
There's
not going
always
away
going to
because
be right.
the state's getting a check, right?
Right.
They're gonna make sure that sticks around. Who's doing it is going to be who can last. And I think that if you are not alone, it's way easier to get picked off if you are. You know what I mean? Way easier to survive with a group. That's an interesting outcome of the conversation, to be honest with you. I wasn't expecting it, but you know, I'm thinking of a dozen things in my mind, just kind of here running through. Yep, I can boil it right back down to people. Yep, that problem, that thing that was sucked up. Yep. If we'd had this, we'd have done way better. We've saved our ass by knowing this guy, right? That one guy came in and looked and he goes, "Yep, you got russet mites." Holy crap! Where'd that come from? Right? We never took another clone in without quarantining it. You know what I mean? You learn.
Right,
Like that was an
right.
expensive thing. We didn't just go in and get rid of that problem. You had 2 months worth of product that was not yielding like it should have. Even when you knew the problem and you had solved it, you're basically starting your grow from scratch as far as yield, because it killed yield. And so you still had good weed, just the yield sucked. So you're just putting all the inputs in and getting no money out on the back end. We couldn't have survived at those yields. But as soon as we solved the problem, yields are back. But you're still paying bills through that time. If you're solid, you got solid people, you'll make it through that, right? Everybody will buck up and do what they got to do, whatever it is. So, I think consultation would go in there too. If I could say, if you've got some money, find somebody who has done it and pay them what they need to share that info with you. I can't
get the light bulb.
We would have hired a consultant for anything in the beginning.
Right.
There were none. Right? There were no consultants because no one had done it. So they were all guys that had the best. You want to find the guy with the best idea? Well, swing on my pole for that. Right. But we really looked in the beginning. We couldn't find a consultant. So now it's available. There's people who could help you in the beginning. And maybe it's, not so much them coming through to your grow or whatever, but maybe someone you can call and say, "Hey, I'm dealing with this. How would you handle it?" And maybe they go, "I don't know." That's a good answer. You know what I mean? I don't know is great. Like, guy tells me he doesn't know. I'll trust him the next time when he tells me he thinks he does, But I guess I think it's a weird piece of advice maybe, but if you got somebody who's done it before and they're willing to help you go through the details and be there not just for a week, I think that's good. But what? Guys who is this guy? Like, nobody can go in and give the advice that's going to get a guy through a situation in a week. You got to have some follow up on the back end. Hell, I would have paid good money for that in the beginning. Looking back, I might not have done it then because we didn't really know who to trust. But that guy we brought in and noticed that russet mite thing. Susie, we knew how to get rid of them at russet mites. We just didn't realize we had them. Damn things are so tiny; they don't even look like bugs. And, it was a subtle problem you had to know something about. So yeah. I wouldn't have thought of that first for sure. God, thanks for asking me that question. That was great. What else? What else you got?
Yeah, I actually have a thought experiment. Let's say you are transported back as a young man, having the experience what you have now, but you are now going back in time, but you've carried your experience with you. You have $50,000 in the bank, and you can jump into any industry but not cannabis,
I would
what
have
would it
bought
be,
Bitcoin.
and what would you do?
I would have bought Bitcoin. But when I was starting up the cannabis industry, they had a guy with a Bitcoin booth at one of our little stupid meetings. You know what I mean? Like,
What
this
year is
was
this?
12, 13,
Okay.
right in the beginning. And I know what it was. They set up a table for Bitcoin at a Super Bowl pot party that we had the first year legalization was out. So this place opened up their thing. It was like I think it was a restaurant bar place or something. And basically everybody just, was smoking weed and watching the Super Bowl. And this guy was downstairs and I got talking to him and Bitcoin was like 30, 80 cents, something like that. And he goes, yeah, you can set up a little server yourself, little device. It's not a big, like this little card. And he goes, you just go in there and mine Bitcoin. And I was so involved with this.
Right.
And that I just said, I really like the sound of this because he was telling me the whole thing about, what it was, how it went. And I was like, really? I mean, it was like 30 cents, bro. Right. And I thought, well, gosh, can I just buy some of these Bitcoin from you? And I did. And then I sold them when they were like, I don't know, $20 or something. I mean, killer trade, but should have bought back in. Right. But I didn't. But that was just. But if you want the honest answer, that's it. That would I contemplated that in the beginning, and I said no. But what if I went back? Would there at that time would there have been anything else I would have done? No. I probably would have just kept doing what I was doing with the school. Maybe not. I was having problems with that too. People. There you go. Right back to it. Now that I get out of cannabis and think of something else, then it always kind of come down to people. I don't know. I'm realizing it more and more. Seems like everything stems out of that instead of, you don't have a situation that makes good people, but you have good people make good situations, so little life lesson at 62. But, anything different? I would probably trade.
Okay.
Yeah. I got a buddy of mine. He's been in insurance for like 20 years. And I don't know if you know anything about annuities, but, annuities used to be like, I used to just think, get the hell away from me. When you got the plague. Because I looked into them and they were exploitive on the insurance side. A lot of people had an annuity.
I don't know enough about them. At a high
annuity,
level.
No, just high level. Basically, let's say you got money in your IRA. Okay? You're 59 and at 59 and a half something has to happen, or you're 40, it doesn't matter. But you just go, look, I'm going to take that and I'm going to lock it in at 8% gains. So if the market goes up 50%, I don't get the rest of that. But I'm going to take this and say you got $1 million and you take half of it and you lock it in, and it's at whatever percentage the insurance company will give you on the annuity, 8% or something, I think it is now. So you have a guarantee return, and it'll provide you X amount of dollars a month for the rest of your life. Okay. But when you die, if you die and there's no money left of that money because they're chunking that out to you, well, if you die, it just goes away sometimes. Right? Now they have this, I think it's called an income for life rider. I'm just learning about it, so I'm no expert. But it's intriguing, and I'm kind of even considering maybe going to work with him a little bit in that, if you want to know, because it's pretty stable what we're doing. But now the money that's left over would go to your spouse, and if your spouse didn't use it up, it would be given to your kids. Now that's a fair. This is a fair deal, right? Insurance saying, give us the money, we're going to use it. We can make money with your money more than 8%. So we're going to give you 8%, and then we're going to take whatever we can do with it. And for that, when you turn it on, you're going to get, $8,000 a month or whatever you need. But that's going to come in. It's going to go to your wife when you pass, or vice versa, and it's going to go on to your kids if there's any money left. Because every month you take your 10 grand. Let's say you got 50 of those or something. But if the account runs out of money, they keep making those payments until you die, right? And they cover your spouse as well. They have now annuities that'll do that. Before they didn't, as I understood it. So,
Right.
I think
I'm always
it's
very interesting to hear about these insurance companies because obviously there's a large swath of data to suggest that their calculations on predicting one's life, right, as they're going about evaluating these deals at scale, they have pretty robust models.
all that. It's just a product that's out there, is the way I see it. I don't look at it like an investment vehicle. It's more of income after you've done working, so you can do what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
And if the market cuts in half, you don't get involved in that. It's no big deal. You're locked in. So, you know what? I have something I'll share with you that we do that is unusual, but it's pretty intriguing. There's a thing called captive insurance. Have you heard of that?
No.
Captive insurance, basically speaking, someone who's in capital insurance, if they're in this, they're going to go, well, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about, right? But you might, I could even probably hook you up with some people who could talk about it. But say you've got an insurance. What's your insurance premium a year, if you don't mind? Just give me a number. What do you pay for insurance?
For argument's sake, it's $1,000.
$1,000 a year?
No. For argument's sake, right now. I mean, you're talking about
$1,000.
Yeah.
Let's say 10,000. Okay, so you have 10,000
liability or personal or
business,
commercial business. Okay, let's
commercial
just say
liability.
10,
yeah, 10 grand per business, right? Okay, so you're paying this 10 grand premium, and you got this deductible also. So you're paying 10 grand to not pay after you pay some more if something happens, whatever the number is. What we've done is we took a group of growers and we formed our own insurance company. Okay. And basically our insurance company is a pool. So let's say you have 10 growers, all throw in 10 grand.
Okay.
Gives them shares in the insurance company. But basically, if there are no claims, there's premiums that are being paid into the plan, but you don't want any outlays. Well, we know how to vet a grow for risk, right? I mean, we can definitely say we're not going to let somebody in on the insurance, the captive insurance plan, and partner with us on it if they're running a place with extension cords everywhere or something. You know what I mean? Because it's just risk of so. Let's say we go to an insurance company. We go, look, we'd like a policy, but we're going to cover the first 100,000 of any damages on any one claim. Really? Yeah. What would you charge me for $100,000 deductible instead of the $5,000 deductible? Your rates plummet. So it's like an insurance company buying reinsurance where if they get a claim too big for them, they can submit it up. They're giving a piece of what they're making to these guys all the time, and it's just a bigger player. So and also now that you are part of the expenses of this, you're going to run your operation tighter too, because it stings you if it happens, if there's a claim. So we go to the insurance company and say, yeah, and our insurance rates, we're saving so much money on insurance. Plus, we are an owner of the company. So we can bring other farms in and insure them through what we're doing. But they can still, there's a few slots with some ownership. But pretty soon it just becomes a bunch of owners, and then we can offer insurance to growers based on that. But we're experts in it. And we cover that front end. But, I don't know all the limit. Now we're getting into where I'm still just like when I went, okay, yeah, I get it. So we're an insurance company now? And they're like, yeah. And I went, oh, bitching, But but you see the alliance?
No, I see it. I think not only the alliance, but developing out and again keeping your aperture open, right, on all opportunities that are all ancillary,
Mhm.
that are still touching the business. It's always a solid bet.
It's a result of our collaboration.
Yeah.
See, the guys we're doing this with are other growers that we collaborated with. And then the idea of this
If
comes
everyone
up
had
and
the
you
same
go,
problem, right, there's an opportunity, then it absolutely makes sense.
our expenses are lower than our competitors. Plus, we're in a position now where they could pay us money and get a really good deal. So without competing with them, we've gotten some of the money that they were paying out to somebody else. Didn't hurt them one way or another. You see what I'm so that's another revenue spot that is decreasing your expenses. It's a slick guy. I'm telling you, that's a good one. I would like to see the entire cannabis industry become groups of self-insured for the front end of the problem. We if it doesn't reach $100,000, you don't even talk to the guy that sold you the policy. We're getting that on the cheap, bro. I mean, the numbers were great when I looked at it. So I would encourage because you know what else that does is, you know, it, we didn't do it on purpose, but you collaborate with some guys, you come up with this idea, you look at them and you go, would you be interested in that? And the guy goes, yeah. But you're not, you kind of know this guy, right?
Hmm.
You know he's good for it, kind of thing. Because it's a big problem to start it up. You got to go through regulatory and blah blah blah. You'd have to find someone to do it, but I think that's one of the better moves we've made in the last 5 years. That little insurance thing. I that's more of a feeling. We're not making money on it, you know. Right now, it's just our insurance. But what do you think of that idea?
I think it's a good idea. Like I said, anything ancillary at all that's scalable, I think it's definitely worth pursuing. Um, yeah, anything that is scalable. Um, Craig, I
Cool.
actually wanted to talk a little bit more about a little bit more on the technology side, specifically the technology that incorporates, obviously sacred geometry into
Mm.
its principal designs. Um, but I think that is an entirely different
Oh,
episode altogether.
that's not even a
Right.
tangent. That's a new sheet of
Right.
paper. But
That is,
well, I
I think
told you about
for
that. I think you should. We were talking about that Eros. I mentioned
right.
it before. I think you could do a great pod with that guy.
What's his name?
Better than any. Well, um, the company is Eros. AIRROS
Hmm.
is their company. Um, I could look it up here for you. I sent you a link, I think. But
Let's do this, Craig. We can
Kevin
go
is
ahead
the
and
guy.
we just get
Yeah,
an
Kevin and
exchange
Brian.
contact.
You know
And
why
then
I think it would be. It isn't. I mean, they're actually not the kind of company that does promotion like that. Like they wouldn't. I don't think he would be interested. Brian, the guy the inventor, developer. I don't think he would be the least bit interested to go on a podcast to sell his product. You know what I'm saying? But to go and talk about the tech and
that
how
is
it
the
relates
conversation
to the
I would love to have with him.
cannabis industry, he would.
Right.
I did that with him, and he loves it. And he's a geek. You have no idea he's a geek. You know, the dude
Right.
knows some geeky, weird, off the edge stuff. Okay, but
Right.
he's a very affable guy. He's a good dude to talk to. And I'll tell you what, we went from having a problem to not because of his product. You can go try to look
I
at all the
would
tech and everything, but
love to talk to him. I would love to,
yeah,
not only pick his brain and just talk about again, the underlying technology, but everything sacred geometry, and that me and you both know and love. But Craig,
yeah. I
this
don't know.
has
Do you
been
understand
packed with
sacred geometry? Do you understand it?
basics, very, very, very bare bone basics. I have yet to get
Could you
get my hands dirty. and dig.
Did you talk to Randall Carlson for more than 5 minutes about it?
No, I haven't spoken to
Okay.
Randall.
Me? No, could you? I mean, I think
Oh,
I could
could I?
exhaust my understand. I would be all questions. I got nothing to offer there. That sacred geometry, I'm so ingrained in the other stuff, it's a little hard for me to dip over into. But man, every time you try to put something through it, it works. It's probably my next most intriguing thing, but it's going to be a learning curve, a brain change. But I think it has a lot of application in what we do. I'm not into numerology, but I am into math. And frequencies, understanding frequencies, and that gets right into sacred geometry, right? You got to use it to quantify it. So I think if, maybe not if you're just starting up in your business, but if you've been open a little while, I think exploring the effects of frequency in a commercial grow, whether it's in how you build your water, or what the room's like, or how you dry I don't know. You know what I mean? But I think that frequency has a lot to do. We got all those lights in there. Is it good or bad or indifferent? You know what I mean? Is there a way to play with it? Could you do so? I think that that's all in there. And you can't do that in a soybean farm. You got the sun. But those of us who grow in these confined, indoors, basically, even with a greenhouse, I think that we're going to find out that Arrow's product is a frequency-based Tesla Tech product that obliterated powdery mildew in our grow. You know what I mean? So those applications, I think the more we understand that, I think that's going to be where some opportunities are coming up in the future to get an edge. I don't ever tell anybody that because they're just like, what the hell are you talking about? But you know exactly what I mean. It's, gosh, can you imagine if you could run a frequency of sound through your grow and your yield went up 10%? And you'd just pop the head off your neck to do that. Where, the way the industry is, a 10% advantage, you'll pay for that and it wouldn't cost much. So I think that's coming. There's a few guys that are.
There is a lot of work being done with harmonics and sound frequencies and just healing
really?
the body. Yeah.
I've only looked at it. But have you looked at that? I mean, do you believe that there's maybe it has an effect, but that somebody can say, if we do this, then this happens in people. Is that out there?
So I'll give you a personal experience, which is before training for dance. So I work out and I dance. I listen to 40 hertz binaural beats because they have been, so it's different beats that are playing in each ear, but together your brain makes up the difference. And it's specifically 40 hertz because it actually increases your retention rate for information and focus. And it puts your brain in a specific frequency. So yeah, I really do believe
no voodoo there. I mean, you've personally experienced that yourself. You do that. Have you ever had brain fog or block or just one of those days or whatever? Didn't get enough sleep, maybe that sort of thing. That kind of a real
that
issue
for that,
with retention.
I use a meditation called Yoga Nidra. It's also referred to in the Western culture as non-rest deep sleep, or I might have botched that, but it's a actual protocol that you could use to essentially non-sleep deep rest. That's what it's called. But the Eastern roots of that is called Yoga Nidra, and it's a type of meditation that you essentially go through to revitalize and recharge your body and reset. It can be used to essentially soup instead of a nap. You do this mindful exercise, and you can calm your nervous system, bring, if you're out of balance, right? So that's yeah.
I'd be interested in trying something like that. It's completely non-invasive, and I think
I will send you some
I think
references.
there's a lot to the frequency issues. I've been a Tesla geek
100%.
since high school, so I've been anytime someone says frequency without it being a pun or something, you know what I mean, or sarcastic, which isn't often, but I think there's something to it, to be honest with you. I don't think I've seen anyone who's figured it out quite yet. I listened to a Tool album in 432 hertz. It's different. It's maybe a little less intense feeling you get out of it, but I liked it. I felt good after I listened to it, and I was like, come on, that's just because it's new. This must be some horse shit. You know what I mean? Because I'm skeptical, but I'm curious, like big time.
I'd say sound. So I mean, looking at the very first thing in a baby that develops is the ears, right? The
Really?
auditory sensors are the most important. Sound is very important.
Well, a baby can hear the mom in her gut.
Yeah.
Everything she says in a whisper, and everything else ever says, so yeah. Is there a frequency that you could give a kid to help him with development of whatever, brain, body, organs? I don't know. But I mean, if there's a more harmonious you see what I'm saying? I do think
I think some of the
everything
modern technology that we have it's not harmonious in terms of the frequencies that are generated. I mean, this is more to, talking about Sheila's presentation, right?
I was just thinking that myself, man, when that
Right.
when that one, I was sitting next to Malcolm for that little thing,
Right.
and he and I are sitting there just on the whole road. So it's just him and me. I looking up there, and all of a sudden that thing, she changed the frequency, and it just went, whoop, and it was like a plasmoid up there. I mean, I went, whoa, it was like the 5-star thing or something. And I went, because she did a good job of explaining what would have to happen to do that. It's got to fit. And when I was expecting it to come out with,
Yeah.
like a little flout, and I went, whoa, and Malcolm slaps me on the arm, and he's like, right? He's like, yeah, you saw it. And I went, whoa, that's
Right.
so experience. I that sounds so stupid that made an impact on me, right? But I've been asking these questions forever. When I saw Malcolm Bendel's stuff, right, I have been asking my whole life, how does all of this stay the way it is? Turns out Tesla's right, it's frequency. But it was also created by frequency, I mean, there's no creation with no frequency. So you can use it for terrible things like weapons, or you could use it for good things. It's just understanding what it is and how it interacts with systems is the application. So I think we're on the cusp of it. Now, for sure, that's got to apply to cannabis. For sure. Did you ever talk with Ed from the
You talk about
summit?
the cow spit?
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I actually have to probably follow up with him, but yeah, he was going to send me a proposal for his tech, because he was very collaborative and he did want to help.
I like him.
I think he got busy and then life happened, and so I will follow up with
Okay.
him. But yeah,
But that's frequency, really. It's right.
That's
You're
the underlying
changing the
thing for
frequency in
everything.
your
I mean,
soil. If that works, man, I'd be excited. You know what I mean? That'd
well,
be
I think we might be a long ways away from like figuring out the actual. If you play bird music and if you play, water sound in your flower rooms, are your employees happy and therefore they're taking care of your plants better, and then it passes on, or are your plants happy? Like there's all these things that we can probably figure out, but
yeah.
Craig,
Yeah.
I think we covered so much today,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
typically it's like
I kind of went
we.
off.
Well, here's
Maybe
the
I
thing.
wasn't.
This is probably like I said, one of the best ones because it felt very organic. Nothing was, scripted. It was still flowing. But no, we packed a lot into this podcast today. And thank you for
Yeah, well,
dropping
props.
every single one
You
of those
asked some of
insights.
the right questions. There's a lot of questions you could ask, but you were getting more down to the core of things. So all those subjects people usually ask you about the industry, honestly. Oh, how does this work? You're just
No, I mean,
it's
here's
stuff
the
you don't
thing.
even
It's
think of.
skipping past
But
the
this was
fluff.
great for me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was a great conversation because you're asking me stuff that I don't ask myself very often, right? From a perspective of a guy that is in my world right now of 10 years ago. It's pretty hard to remember where you came from. But boy, going back, I mean, I've had some smiles and some, oh God, that was horrible. I mean, so this was
Yeah.
I'll tell you, man, I'm so glad you asked me to do it, to be honest with you. I did it as a favor more because I don't want to be on a podcast
Well,
necessarily. You know what I mean?
I
But
appreciate you. I mean, I think you've laid out today for everyone that's going to be listening to this that if they're
well,
not ready for $750 to $500 a pound and don't have a plan,
that is as
they're already behind.
real as a heart attack. That is as real. So here, that number before we go, simple. Take all of your expenses that you projected, double it. That's probably the lowest cost of weed. Triple it, and it'll never be that. You won't be able to sustain at that price. But whatever you can think of up front, say you're 70 grand a month to run your operation. Plan for 140 and 750 weed. You're going to cut out a lot of dumb ideas. You're not going to want to spend 100,000 on a CO2 extractor, or whatever you're built for. I mean, I'm just, it's more kind of our thing. But you're right. Everyone I ever said that number to looked at me like, what? And I'm like, it's going to go to 500. No, we're getting 2,100. Pay off your bills. Hey, you guys are going to make more, you growers, people who are out here doing this, you're going to make your best money in the beginning of your business and in the opening of your state, right? That's the best price you're ever going to get on weed. And it's going to go down, 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 down. It's just going to keep going down. If your state handles enforcement properly and protects your interests like they were contracted to do for the taxes, and you're diligent about your business, you'll make it. Chinese won't be able to affect you. Enforcement,
Right.
you know what I mean? You'll have a fair, level playing field. Then you can collaborate, dude.
Right.
If everybody's making money, you're going to talk. If you weren't making money and now you are, that guy's probably not going to talk, and he's going to fall. That idea is going to wear out its welcome. He's going to go down. So, yeah. Anyway,
No.
I'd throw that in there.
Right.
That's awesome.
Thank you
dude.
so much.
Yeah,
This is
man.
great.
Harsh.
We're gonna definitely have to have a follow up for not only specifically cannabis business, but of course talking about frequencies.